Hi there, this is Donald, and this is my review and my thoughts on House of Leaves by American author Mark Z. Danielewski. House of Leaves is an interesting book. Originally, I thought this was an older classical kind of book, but actually it's written in the year 2000. I would best characterize this book as a experimental novel. It is a novel about a mysterious set of tapes called the Navidson Record, which are a set of mysterious tapes made by a fictional photographer. The character Navidson moves into a new home to try and live the American dream and enjoy his family. But he finds that the house is mysteriously off. The dimensions don't seem to match. Eventually, he finds a strange doorway in his house, and when he opens it, he learns that it leads into a deep, dark, seemingly endless labyrinth. Eventually, Navidson decides to explore inside this labyrinth, and he records his adventures or his excursions inside. Now, that's a pretty killer premise for a book, in my opinion. That said, why is this an experimental novel? First of all, this book is actually pretty confusing. Not necessarily in a bad way, though that would be a matter of opinion. At first, I thought I got a wrong edition of this book, because when I started reading it, it had tons and tons of footnotes, and I mean half of the book was footnotes. So I thought, did I get like this abridged version of this really old classical book and it's somebody's explaining every point? But no, the footnotes are actually part of this book. And in a strange way, the footnotes are kind of nonsensical. A lot of this book is written in a different language. The typeface changes. Sometimes it's written backwards. It kind of messes with your mind. It's definitely a psychological book. This is definitely a love-hate book, which, doing some research online, seems to be a very common conclusion people have about the book. It's a book with a lot of juxtapositions around it. For example, it's a very academic book, footnotes that go on for pages about academic nonsense. But at the same time, it's also mocking academia. It's mind-trippy, but also nonsensical in some points, like doesn't make sense and not in a trippy way. It just doesn't make any sense. It's authoritarian in writing. It's firm, it's strict, and also has an unreliable narrator in some parts of the book. Some of the writing legitimately feels like the author is purposely trying to waste your time and purposely trying to get you to skip. It's really strange. Now, the book is up to interpretation. It is a horror book, but it could be a romance book, it could be a love book, it could be an exploration of deeper sociological themes. There's a lot to unpack. It's a book that, when you read it, you're not going to quite understand everything that happens in it, more so than a regular book. You might have to look through it a second time, or most likely do some background research. Sometimes it feels like it's a bunch of throw up on a page. Like you're reading, it's good, it makes sense, and then blah. It's just like, what is this? Like, what am I supposed to read for the next 15 pages? I had that experience plenty of times. Is it supposed to mean something, or is it just random garbage, or are they trying to mess with your head? Who knows? Sometimes it is style over substance, which I do think it's an experimental novel, and sometimes I don't think it quite worked, in my opinion. The way the book is written makes you feel confused, but also engaged and really deep into the book. It also makes you feel claustrophobic. Notwithstanding a lot of the nonsense in this book, I actually read this entire thing in 2 days. So I read hundreds of pages each day to finish this book. Overall, from a reading perspective, I found the plot, at least of the Navidson portion, to be interesting, fascinating, and the best part of the book. The other plots in the book didn't catch me quite as much, and frankly, I just had no interest. I didn't care at all. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. That said, overall, I did enjoy the book for the horror perspective. And it was fun. It was different. I can confidently say I've never read anything quite like it. Do I recommend this book? I would recommend this book, but just understand that it's experimental, it's weird. There is horror, but there's some other stuff. And don't come in with a firm set of expectations. Just go in and see what's different about it. And that is my review and my thoughts about The House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is definitely a love or a hate book. I'm wondering if you hated it or if you loved it. Personally, I quite liked it, but lots of it were kind of meaningless in my mind. All right, thanks.